All right, so we have George Janko talking about why he left Impulsive and some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes that we haven't heard about. And once again, this just confirms that Logan Paul is a terrible person that treats the people around him like garbage. No surprise there. And George, he had Mike Malak on, which I'm sure Logan is pissed about, because Mike doing this podcast, obviously George was going to talk about this stuff and talk about his falling out with Logan and how he's treated poorly. And Mike, he was trying to defend Logan a little bit, but not much. And he's mostly just trying to defend himself. So Logan's going to think that Mike didn't do enough here and is going to be upset with him, especially because this podcast is getting a lot of attention and people are sharing clips from it and talking about how terrible Logan is. So I'm glad this podcast happened, and it does seem like Mike actually feels bad about how things ended with George. Like, if you remember when George walked off the Bobby Lee episode, Mike was the only one to defend him, and Logan was just talking shit about George for leaving and was acting like it was unprofessional, which is kind of ridiculous considering the podcast is with Bobby Lee, who is the most unprofessional person ever. Like, he's walked out of shows before, and he's just known to be really inappropriate. Like, if you've seen any of his morning talk show appearances, he's always grabbing people and touching people, even when they say not to, and he just makes him really uncomfortable, which he was doing to George during this podcast, if you remember. Like, he, at one point, took his dick out and made George smell it, and then also, apparently, he kept trying to grab George's dick. And I remember at one point, George had to tell him to stop touching me. Like, he got fed up with it.
Question sucked, left me on red. You suck. First of all, don't touch me.
Yeah.
Do not touch me.
My bad.
Thank you.
All right. But,
Then also George talked about recently how they had cut some moments from the podcast, probably where Bobby was acting inappropriate, and it made George look worse because then it looked like he had walked out just because he got offended by the jokes. Then George also said that Logan told him he needed to apologize to Bobby, and if he didn't, then he'd be kicked off the show. And Logan also told him that he shouldn't talk as much during the podcast unless they have no guest on.
Who was the first person that jumped off the couch and said, George just left, that was not good, we have to fix the situation?
But did they not cut shit that you should have stood up for me and said, hey, you can't cut that shit? That's going to make him look like an idiot for leaving.
Okay, numerous times on the show, which I'm sure a number of shows do, cut things that we believe will protect the integrity or reputation of the guest.
That protected nobody but him.
No, of the guest. That's what I'm trying.
Well, what about the guy that you break bread with, bro?
But
I had a problem with the way that Logan and you were kind of gassing him to keep doing. He started the episode putting his balls in my face. I let that one go. Then every 2 seconds, he kept grabbing my dick.
I don't think...
How would you feel if a man that has his back completely towards you, that only turns around to grab your dick...
Right.
Talk shit to your face, and you can't smack or beat the living breaks off of this guy. Because Logan makes me apologize to this man, or I don't have a job on Impulsive anymore. How fucking crazy is that?
I don't think I understood. I can only speak for myself.
Bro, it's on a group chat.
I hope you can understand
it's on a group
that.
Chat.
No. I'm talking about during the episode.
And I said, Mike, this is all that happens, and you said verbatim, you said, it's our fault for not telling you this, but me and Logan are really the ones who should be talking to the guest. You are really there for a boys only episode. So while I get sexually harassed, my other co-host is trying to fire me, and you're trying to leverage me to be quiet during other guests. And then on my birthday, you guys shot 3 episodes, so I couldn't show up.
I just think...
On my 30th birthday, you shot 3 episodes. Bro. That's crazy. It was on the calendar for months.
And if Logan's lapdog, Mike, isn't denying any of this, then it must be true. And it just sounds like Logan. I mean, it's not that surprising. And towards the end, you could tell that Logan wanted to get rid of George. He was just completely done with him, especially after the whole argument they had about religion, where it got really awkward. And it was clear Logan was just trying to start shit with him and get him worked up and pissed off and trying to make a fool out of him, which ended up backfiring. Most people thought Logan was being the dick there. So it's obvious George wouldn't be around much longer, especially once he started his own podcast, which of course Logan wasn't too happy about. But at least he'd use that as a way to push George out of Impulsive. Like, George said that he got an offer from Celsius to do a brand deal with them for his podcast, and Logan told him if he wanted to do that, then he would have to leave Impulsive because, Celsius is a competitor to Prime, which is really hypocritical from Logan because if you remember, he got in a giant argument with his brother about something like this. Because one of Jake's boxing events was sponsored by Celsius, and Logan had nothing to do with it. Like, he didn't need to be there. and he probably wouldn't have been there, but he saw it as an opportunity to get free advertising. So he was trying to walk out and be ringside with a Prime bottle, but of course the people running the event told him he couldn't do it because it would just make no sense. Like, what did they get out of it? And it's a competitor. So Logan threw a temper tantrum over it. And then also at the same time, he has the audacity to tell George on his own podcast that he can't be a sponsor of Celsius. And also apparently Logan was barely paying George to do Impulsive. And he said for a year he wasn't even making anything. And same thing with Mike. He said he was doing it for a couple of years without making anything. And then also George said, well, Logan was telling him not to take the Celsius deal. At the same time, Logan would be flexing how much money he's making from Prime.
When Logan came after me for my religion, the show hit rock bottom and we weren't getting paid. So I had to start my own show because we're not making money on this show and I'm getting pushed out of this show.
Well, at the time we weren't making it.
And by the way, let's not forget that for a year and a half, I didn't get paid.
No, and I didn't get paid for years.
Okay.
Until I got paid.
Okay,
right?
so
But you did make a sizable amount of money on the show.
And by the way, always grateful. I was always grateful.
Something like that?
Yeah, I don't like to talk about money, but I was always grateful. Always grateful. I think anybody could see that. But when I got pushed out, and I'm seeing that I'm getting pushed out, and I start my own show, do you know what my final straw was?
What?
I got my show going, and then not only was I controlled and pushed around on Impulsive, but then Logan's making calls and directing my show. And I'm saying, hey, man, you can't tell me what to do on my own show. That's not okay.
What's that about?
He told me that I couldn't take Celsius. And then I said, hey, man.
He didn't tell you that you couldn't take Celsius.
Messages.
No, he didn't tell you that you couldn't take Celsius. He
says, if I take Celsius, I'm not a part of Impulsive.
Then he told you that if you take Celsius, that you cannot continue to be on Impulsive, which is the core driver for Prime, as you're going to continue to funnel viewership from the Impulsive show back to your show, which promotes a competitive product. Yeah. He also told you that if you wait 6 months after the deal's done, you're more than welcome to rejoin the show if you need to make money.
But they're always trying to find a way to push me out.
I don't.
You know what he told me? When I told you know what I told him?
I think that was
this is a guy who's this is a guy who's sending us screenshots of $11 million a week that he's making. Okay, and on top of that, we never got any money from Prime, and we own that show. So technically, we should have gotten a percentage of that. I never asked for it like the way you did. I stayed the fuck out of it. I didn't care because I am grateful for what I'm making. I'm gonna go start my own business. Like, I will take half the deal that Celsius gives me, half. If you want to put it on the table for my show, a quarter, work with me. He says, I won't pay you a dime. You're here because of me. And then I said, well, what do you want me to do for my bills, bro? I got no money. And he says, go have your rich dad pay for it.
Listen,
that's fighting words, bro. Look at me. That's fighting words, bro. You don't bring up somebody's father.
Would you say that the way that you handled it from a word standpoint was mature, acceptable?
What did I say? That I beat the brakes off of him?
Correct.
If he was in front of me, I would have swung at him.
But that's what I'm trying to say. We were at a point where no one was speaking properly to each other.
Yeah, so Mike was defending Logan quite a bit there. I wonder if he had to get permission from him to do this podcast. You know, I feel like he probably had to ask Logan about it. And if he didn't, then, like I said, Logan will be really upset. Because obviously Mike had to know this would be a bad look for Logan. And a guy, Dylan Dennis, tweeting about him again. Like he said, hey, George, we should sue Logan for allowing a guest to sexually assault you in the workplace and covering it up through editing. Then he also said, hey, WWE, he tagged them. He said, do you condemn Logan Paul for letting his best friend get sexually assaulted while laughing and threatening him with termination if he says anything, then deleting the footage and firing him? Interesting. Yeah, so I don't know if it'll get serious enough to where Logan has to address it or anything like that, but I feel like he could take some shots at George on his podcast because he does like talking shit about him. I mean, even after George left, Logan continued to trash him on his podcast. So I feel like there's a good chance he could talk about this, and he'll probably just yell at Mike for going on there. So that's about it for this video. But if you guys want more content from me, make sure to check out my Patreon account. I post a new video on there every week. And this Monday, I'm going to be talking about the time Tim Dillon humbled Whitney Cummings during this really cringy podcast. And last week on there, I talked about how Theo Vaughn is a cheapskate. And there's just a ton of other stuff to go through. There are over 70 videos at this point. So if you're a fan of the channel, I highly recommend it. Make sure you check it out. I'll put a link in the description. Alright, so in this video we have Hassan Piker. As usual, he's out here embarrassing himself. You know, this guy never disappoints. If you remember a couple weeks ago, he took some heat because he was talking about how draining his job is and how difficult it is.
A real job can be gruesome. A real job can make you very tired. But a real job doesn't suck the soul out of you. You know what I mean? In the same way that 9 hours of streaming absolutely will.
Yeah, so next time anybody's complaining about their job, just remember it could be worse. You could be a millionaire Twitch streamer who has to watch TV and react to YouTube videos for a living. You know, apparently that will just suck the soul out of you, and it keeps getting worse for Hassan because now he's been losing viewers recently, which he's been having a meltdown over because he thinks he deserves more viewers, and he blames his decline in viewership on his opinion on Palestine.
I've been hemorrhaging both viewership and followers since October 7th, nonstop. There are plenty of people who are just straight up like, I'm so progressive, I'm the most progressive person, except for Palestine. When it comes to Palestine, I think you're crazy. The fact that you are like saying things such as Palestinians deserve emancipation is...
Yeah, so that could be part of it. Or maybe people are just finally sick of listening to him because he says a lot of stupid shit and he's really annoying. And he's just a spoiled brat. Like recently he's been throwing a temper tantrum because his views have dipped. It's crazy. He's complaining because he only gets around 13,000 live viewers, which he should just be thankful for. I mean, that's still 13,000 too many, and that's viewership people would kill for. But of course, he's having a meltdown over it, which is just embarrassing. And he never accepts responsibility for the decline. You know, instead it's everybody else. Like he talks about how great his streams are and how people just aren't tuning in for some reason. And he blames the decline on people not being progressive enough or not engaging enough in his community or something. I mean, he acts like he just knows his streams are better than all the other ones and he deserves more viewers for it. I mean, it's just getting so pathetic. And some of his friends were concerned about him when they heard about this and reached out to make sure he's doing all right, which I'll get into here in a second. But first, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Factor. With Factor, you can get high quality, fresh, never frozen meals sent right to your doorstep every week that are ready to go in only 2 minutes. Which is perfect for somebody like me because I'm not very good at cooking. I don't like doing it. It's not worth it for me. So Factor, I can save a lot of time and effort, and the food's way better than anything I could make. And Factor offers a variety of different options. Their menus are updated weekly and include over 27 different meals and 33 add-ons. And you can choose your favorite meals or let Factor decide based on your taste preferences and meal history. And all their meals are delivered fresh, never frozen, and you can get as little as 4 meals a week, all the way up to 18. And they're really flexible. It's easy to skip weeks if you need to. So if you guys want to get started today, you can head over to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 2lazy50 to get 50% off your first order. Again, that's factor75.com, code 2lazy50, and you get 50% off your first order. Yeah, so like I was saying, Hassan was having a meltdown recently on his Discord, and some of these messages from it went viral, where he said, "I'm so sad, I think the streams are bangers, but people just don't see them." He also said, "We used to be a community, I hate what my community has become," which finally something people agree with him on. You know, I think most people hate his community. And I think this is the funniest message here. He said, "I swear Twitch streaming isn't about the actual content. It's about whether people want to pay attention to you or not, and clout. All that shit was a banger and 13,000 people watched. Like I'm effing gaming at 8 p.m. Like imagine being 32 years old, crying on Discord about how your streams are bangers, but nobody wants to watch, and you only have 13,000 viewers. And acting like it's the audience's fault. You know, of course, when he's getting like 40,000, the audience has great taste in content. But now that he's getting less, it's like, oh, people don't even care about the content anymore." I mean, Hassan has to be one of the most entitled people alive, no question about it. Like, you have to be so out of touch to be complaining about this stuff. And what does he think his streams are? You know, why does he deserve more viewers than everybody else? You know, why are his bangers compared to somebody who's just gaming at 8 p.m.? And of course, now that his viewers have dropped, he's like, oh, it's not even about the content, you know, it's just about clout and whether people want to pay attention to you or not. And it's like, of course, I mean, that's how it works. I mean, this dude is just coping so hard right here. And then he also went on to say, "I'm done. I hate this job. I'm not streaming today." And you know, when you become this out of touch, I think you should be forced to work a regular job for a while. Like clearly Hassan needs some perspective on things. I mean, he just said, "I don't like my job. I'm not going to work today." How many jobs can he do that with? And if he doesn't like his job, he can go just get a regular one. You know, he doesn't need to be a Twitch streamer. But of course, he lives in like a $3 million house and drives around in a $200,000 sports car. So I don't think he'd be able to maintain that lifestyle with a normal job. But also, I know he came from money, like his parents have money. So he's just a spoiled rich kid that's used to getting everything he wants. And now that his viewers have dropped off, he's panicking. And there's one more message that was part of this thread where he said, "I'm going to end myself." And Hassan actually addressed this one. This one actually was out of context. He was making a joke or something, but I believe that's the only one that was. You know, he said like, oh, these messages are out of context, but that's the only one he provided any context for. And the other ones, I don't know what you could add to that where it would change what he's saying. So here's a clip of Hassan kind of addressing it and talking about how some of his friends saw those messages and reached out because they're concerned that he wasn't doing too well.
Okay, not in the clips at all. So then they presented it in a way where it was like, oh, Hassan wants to kill himself because he's like losing viewership. And it went super viral. And I had no idea. I had no idea whatsoever. You want to know why? Because I don't have Twitter on my phone and because I wasn't online. Okay? I wasn't online. So I had no fucking clue that this was going on. And I started getting messages. I started getting messages from like Mike Malak. And you know, like random friends of mine that are on Twitter, but like are normies otherwise, being like, hey bro, is everything all right? And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so this whole thing is hilarious. You know, first of all, the fact that Hassan's viewers have declined and he's freaking out over it, even though he still has 13,000 people watching, which is still way more than he deserves. And also, you'd think he's done streaming long enough where he could handle something like this. You know, obviously views fluctuate a lot. They go up and down. You know, obviously he's not going to be averaging 40,000 viewers his whole career, but he sees a slight dip and he just loses it. And instead of being like, you know what, maybe I could change things, maybe I could make better streams, he's just like, yeah, my streams are still bangers. People just, they have bad taste now. My community's falling apart. You know, he's like blaming his audience, which is really weird. So he's just losing it, but it's probably good that he's off Twitter. You know, I don't think that was really helping him at all. But it's funny, when I first read these messages, I was like, damn, I knew Hassan was a man-child, but I didn't know it was this bad. So I was waiting to see if there's like any community notes on it or if he said anything about it, but it seems like just that one message was out of context. So of course he'll use that to be like, oh no, I'm all good, you know, I wasn't having a meltdown, but we all see what's going on here, you know, clearly this is getting to him. So that's about it for this video. If you guys want more content from me, make sure you check out my Patreon account. I'm going to be posting a new video there on Monday where I'm going to be going over the debate between Alex Jones and that crazy rabbi on Twitter. And I also might cover some of the P. Diddy stuff going on. So if you want to hear about any of that, make sure you go check it out. There's a ton of other content on there. There's a lot to go through. So if you're a fan of the channel, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the description.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration.
Dismissing me out of hand by attacking my motive is not going to work. And telling me that my question is an insult to the children who died in Texas in a flood is an outrageous response. You get the middle finger in the face from me for doing that.
Trump has backed himself into a corner with a miserable response. Dan Bongino's done poorly, Kash Patel's done poorly, Pam Bondi has done poorly. And so it's hard for me to believe that all of these abject failures in the response in the Epstein story are an accident. Though they probably are. I'm just saying, like, isn't it hard to believe they screwed up this bad?
It's not just like you're covering up criminal activity. You're covering up the systemic rape and torture of children. That's too evil, man.
All right, so the Epstein files situation just keeps getting so much worse. I don't think I've ever seen this much blatant gaslighting and lying. I mean, it's basically impossible to ignore it at this point, even for Trump's biggest supporters. It's also getting increasingly more difficult for people to explain this in a way where it doesn't look like the government is trying to cover up a child sex trafficking operation. That's why the only thing they can really do at this point is convince people to stop talking about it, because there's no way to explain this and not make the administration look absolutely terrible. You know, they completely botched this thing so badly. I mean, first they claimed there was a list which needed to be exposed and everybody needed to be held accountable and they would be the ones to do it. So they pretended to give it out, but then they admitted they rickrolled us and they got a ton of backlash. So then they said they received a truckload of documents and videos that they were going through. But then once they went through that, it turns out there's no evidence of anybody being involved in Epstein's operation. There's no client list. And then they got a ton of backlash from that. So they said there actually was a client list. They didn't want to release it though, because it was created by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. So first there's a list, then there's no list. Now there's a list again, but it's fake. So it's like they're not even trying at this point. I mean, this is the most desperate and pathetic attempt at a cover-up ever. And then just recently, a reporter asked Trump if his attorney general saw his name in the Epstein files, which is a great question, and Trump's response is hilarious. He starts talking about the credibility of the files, which again, just last week, they said there were no files, but now they're files, but he doesn't trust the credibility, of course. I wonder why. And after he's asked about it, he's like, Pam Bondi gave me a briefing, and in terms of the credibility, I'd say those files were made by Obama and Biden. I mean, he doesn't even sound very confident in his lies anymore. You know, he's asked if his name is in the Epstein files, and he's just like, you can't trust them. Obama probably made them. I mean, he even says it like he's speculating, like he's just coming up with that. I mean, he might as well just be like, yeah, she saw my name in there, but odds are Obama probably put it in there. And then he was asked about it another time, and he's like, I don't know why anyone cares. You know, the credible information's out there. It's been given. It's also so boring, and only bad people in the fake news care about keeping the story going. And he's saying all this while standing next to Jeffrey Epstein's former neighbor and business associate, and the guy's laughing while Trump is talking about this. So it's completely ridiculous. And the 180 that Trump and his administration did is also insane. You know, they're trying to gaslight everyone like we're all just NPCs. I mean, Dan Bongino, Trump's deputy director of the FBI, used to tell people there's way more to the Epstein story and we should continue talking about it because the government is trying to cover it up. But now Trump and Dan are saying it's boring, people need to move on from it, and they're helping cover it up. So the fact that they expect us to just accept this and move on like nothing happened is insulting to everyone's intelligence.
Why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled?
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is.
Why do they want to make this Jeffrey Epstein story go away so bad? Because the people in charge of this global cabal of idiots out there trying to hide the truth don't want you to hear about this story and have the power to censor it.
And the credible information's been given, but I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But
we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there. This Epstein thing is there's more than meets the eye there. I know a lot of people want to make this thing go away. That Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this.
You had the files, Attorney General Pam Bondi.
a very quick briefing.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing. And in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, these files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden. We went through years of that.
Oh, boy. This thing is just getting nastier by the second. The question is, why were they talking to him and what were they trying to make go away? Does it have anything to do with the extensive video network alleged to have existed on his island and on his plane?
So maybe Trump should ask Dan why he thinks the Epstein files are so interesting, or Cash, or Pam, or JD Vance, or most of his administration. They're all talking about how we need to hold these people accountable up until about 6 months ago. They went from trying to expose Epstein clients to helping cover for them. Like, if Dan Bongino were still just a podcaster during this, he'd be all over it. He wouldn't believe any of this bullshit they're trying to put out. Like the whole tape of Epstein's cell that apparently proved he killed himself. I don't know what the hell that was supposed to be. It didn't even show Epstein's cell. It was edited and cut up and missing a couple minutes of footage. But Dan claimed this was evidence that showed clear as day that nobody went into Epstein's cell. And he also claimed they were giving us original footage, which again is just another lie on top of the thousands already.
There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
So it's telling you don't trust anyone, me included. We don't bring receipts, throw it out the window.
But how Epstein died, or if he died, I think is mostly just a red herring at this point. You know, they'd rather have us focused on that than the client list. I mean, they'd rather have us focused on almost anything other than the list. Like, Trump is so desperate, he's now reportedly calling and having meetings with influencers and politicians to try to get them to stop talking about it and to get them to defend Pam Bondi because she's getting a lot of heat and people want her to step down. So apparently Charlie Kirk got the call. He said he's done talking about it and he trusts the government, which sounds completely ridiculous. I mean, we're literally watching the government try to gaslight us and lie to our faces and try to cover it up. And Charlie's just like, yeah, I think they're doing a good job. I trust what they're doing. I mean, it's already hard to trust the government, but especially when it comes to the Epstein files and them claiming that there are no files, or now there are files. You know, it depends on the day. You know, sometimes they exist, sometimes they don't. But now apparently they do exist and they're fake. You know, we're just supposed to believe that. Apparently Charlie does. You know, he trusts his friends in the government, you know, his friends that are trying to cover for Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, when is reality going to hit these people? Like, they're really going to go down trying to cover for Epstein. That's crazy. Like, also Stephen A. Smith, he was going off about how he doesn't care about it, even though he admits that there probably is a client list, but it just doesn't matter to him at all. And I don't know if he got a call from Trump or if he's just out of his mind. And then also Matt Gaetz reportedly met with Trump, and now he keeps praising Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. So this is like when the mainstream media gets a call from the higher ups to try to push a narrative. You know, it's the same kind of thing.
I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine.
You're in an uproar off the Epstein list. That's all you've got. It's really, really surprising that this matters. Of course, I think there's a list, but I don't know. I suspect, but I have no knowledge, nor do I care. It's Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out and enjoy myself. I'm getting ready to have a nice weekend. I could give a damn about the client list, the Epstein client list. It has no effect on me whatsoever. I have a life. I don't understand for the life of me why this matters so much to these. I'm talking about people losing it. They're crying on camera. They're talking about resignations.
And I'm going to make the case that even though there are unanswered questions about Epstein, it is in fact time to move on. Part of being on a political team is maintaining a certain amount of maturity, recognizing you can't win them all, recognizing there are some things that are important to you that are less important to the guy that you've put in charge, who is trying to focus on things right in front of him. And so having a sense of perspective, having a sense of balance, having a sense of maturity, I think is more important even than getting to the bottom of what really happened.
Explain to me what you think the nonsense is here.
Well, frankly, the fact that you're even covering this. I mean, I don't even understand, frankly, why we're spending a lot of time on Jeffrey Epstein. You know, the fact is he was a pedophile who was arrested. He committed suicide, and his, fixer, if you will, is being prosecuted. So at the end of the day, if there are people who were part of any crimes, then they should be prosecuted. But in the absence of that, what exactly are we looking to do? The information is there. It is well documented what he did. And beyond that, what exactly are we looking for?
Let's start with Pam Bondi. The Attorney General always takes a lot of flack in any administration, but look at what she has accomplished. The Bondi team successfully litigated away the judicial coup of nationwide injunctions. Attorney General Pam Bondi is a star and has our full admiration and support. Which Trump AG would you replace Pam Bondi with? Barr? Sessions? Rosen? She's the best, and we appreciate her service. And at the FBI, some have suggested that they aren't keen on Kash anymore. Look at where we've been at the FBI. It used to be a dumpster fire.
So I don't know how much longer these people can keep it up, because also they get a ton of shit for it. You know, they're clearly just trying to cover. And also they always say they're done talking about it, but then I'm sure they'll keep talking about it. You know, it's like Trump being like, why does everyone care about this? When his attorney general did a whole press tour about it. I mean, every week she was on Fox talking about the files on her desk and the videos and the tapes, and she released those binders. So she's been bringing a lot of attention to it and overpromised on everything. And then Trump says she's doing a great job. And it turns out Trump is continuing to talk about it, because while I was wrapping up this video, he just made another True Social post. And he said their new scam, the Democrats, is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And my past supporters have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will. Even after being conned by the left lunatics for 8 long years, I've had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history. And all these people want to talk about, with strong prodding by the fake news and the success of starved Democrats, is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't ever think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success, because I don't want their support anymore. So now he wants people to refer to the Jeffrey Epstein story as a hoax. You know, apparently it's complete BS now. And if you're talking about it, he doesn't want your support anymore, and you're just falling for the left-wing media's trap. So I think Trump honestly might be cooked at this point. I don't know if there's coming back from this. I mean, this just makes no sense. I don't know how anybody could defend this anymore, and it's almost impossible not to blame Trump at this point. And I'm sure it'll just keep getting worse from here too. So make sure you subscribe to stay updated, and make sure you check out my Patreon account. If you want to hear about how Joe Rogan's handler might be an Epstein client, he was meeting with Epstein even after he's a convicted sex offender, and he took a giant loan from him too. And also Epstein associates have been using his podcast to try to vindicate themselves and clear their name. And there's a lot of other Epstein content and just a ton of other stuff, over 140 exclusive videos. There's a lot to go through. So if you want to stay up to date with everything and hear about everything going on behind the scenes, that's the best way to do it. Make sure you check it out. There'll be a link in the description.
All it is the Republicans, certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook. They're started by the Democrats, and some Republicans, in this case I was surprised, but they got duped.
So I'm going to go throw up, actually. I mean, I'm physically going to puke probably right now. My mouth is watering right now. It's because